bring down the temperature. I can show you one clip of Stephen Miller at Charlie Kirk's memorial last night that blows that entire narrative out of the water. And I didn't know if I wanted to make this video on Stephen Miller's hate and vitriol, but upon rewatching the speech this morning, I realized it was so propagandistic and eerie and hateful that there needs to be a narrative disruption. We need to use our platform to call out the fact that Donald Trump's deputy chief of staff and Donald Trump himself used their friend's memorial not to eulogize, their so-called buddy Charlie Kirk, but instead to push more hatred, push more vitriol, and divide the country even further. I mean, last night, Donald Trump got on stage and immediately said that he hates his enemies. Let me play this clip very quickly.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry.
I mean, could you imagine if Joe Biden had gone on stage and said something like this? This would be a segment on Fox News for 2 weeks. Piers Morgan would never let this go. Every single right-winger would be saying this is an insane escalation. Yet Donald Trump says, I hate my political opponents. And it just slips right by. Stephen Miller pushed 5 times as much hatred in his speech. But it's more insidious. In 2025, a lot of right-wingers don't think you're being hateful unless you're just using direct slurs or yelling at minority groups. But Stephen Miller's hatred is a lot more insidious than that. He creates outgroups, he creates scapegoats, and then he uses vague language to get people stirred up about scapegoats without any sort of channel, any sort of actionable way to do this, like voting or mobilizing. He just gets people mad, gets people angry about scapegoat groups, and that is the danger. Let me show you this clip of Stephen Miller just a week ago. Just listen to the way that Donald Trump's deputy chief of staff speaks about millions, tens of millions of Americans in the Democratic Party.
That party does not fight for, care about, or represent American citizens. It is an entity devoted exclusively to the defense of hardened criminals, gangbangers, and illegal alien killers and terrorists. The Democrat Party is not a political party. It is a domestic extremist organization.
Wow, Democrats.
How do rumors get started? They started by the jealous people, and they get mad in something they had and somebody else is holding. They tell me that temptation is very hard to resist, but these wicked women, ooh, they just persist. Now maybe you think it's cute, but girl, I'm not impressed. I tell you one time only, when my business, please don't mess. Look at all these rumors surrounding me every day. I just need some time to get away from all these rumors. I can't take it no more. My best friend says it's what I know about me and the girl next door. Hear that one about Tina? Some say she's much too loose. That came straight from a guy who claims he's tasted her juice. Hear that one about Susan? Some say she's just a tease. In her camera saw she's 6 feet tall. She'll knock you to your knees. Look at all these
coming from Stephen Miller right there, who is essentially spearheading a lot of the policy for the Trump administration. Trump is obviously old and tired and rather resigned at this point, so he does his media hits, but a lot of reporters say that Stephen Miller is the one spearheading a lot of the most insane policy coming out of this admin, and it makes sense. You can see why.
It seems from rumors, I just can't get away. I bet there'll even be rumors floating around on Judgment Day. I think I'll write my congressman and tell him to pass a bill, so the next time they catch somebody starting rumors, shoot to kill. Look at all these rumors surrounding me every day. I just need some time to get away from all these rumors. I can't take it no more. See, my best friend says that's what I know about me and the girl next door. What do you mean you didn't say it? You didn't say who said it.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, constitutional law scholar Nicholas Bowie of Harvard Law School, and former DOJ national security official Mary Bowman. By the end of this conversation, they'll reveal how the law is being twisted to undermine democracy. They'll also discuss the steps we can all take right now to stop it. But before we get into any of that, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel to stay informed about how you can defend democracy.
litigating with the National Immigration Law Center and the National Youth Law Center, and our case on birthright citizenship. We have partners at CASA and at the Asylum Seekers Advocacy Project. And so that's just, I think, a good representation of all the partners in the nonprofit world that are taking on a really outsized load this administration to challenge executive overreach. ICAP is primarily a constitutional litigation shop, and we and other lawyers and advocates certainly use tools of litigation, but litigation alone can't ensure the protection of constitutional rights, especially today. And, you asked me to talk a little bit about what DOJ's role is. And, even before I was the acting assistant attorney general for national security, I was principal deputy before that. And I was a federal prosecutor for 12 years before that. And I was in a different federal government position before that. Dockets just skyrocket with cases challenging executive action. You combine that then with blacklisting law firms to try to coerce them to actually not do pro bono work, not work with nonprofits, not challenge Trump's executive actions, and that has created a situation where a lot of law firms, even those not blacklisted, have been cowed from doing that kind of work. And
I think the question the court often asks itself when interpreting the Constitution is, what interpretation will give us, the justices on the Supreme Court, the most flexibility to enforce the policies and laws we like, and to invalidate and block the policies and laws we don't like? And just to elaborate a little bit on what I mean by that, and I don't think I'm the only person with that interpretation. So Justice Jackson on the court right now has used the phrase judicial aggrandizement to describe the same thing. But to give a longer explanation, the Constitution is a short document. You compare it to constitutions around the world, it's one of the shortest national constitutions. It was designed to be short. It was designed for anyone to be able to read. And even the amendments to the Constitution are short. And they include things like very broad generalities for what governments can do, what rights we have. So Congress's power is to enforce the provision by appropriate legislation. People have offered all kinds of explanations for that. In 1965, Congress answered that question by saying, we think appropriate legislation means the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a law that prohibits states from enforcing things like literacy tests that were arbitrarily denying people of color the ability to vote in the South, a law that required states with a history of voter suppression to go to a federal court or the attorney general to review whether its changes were going to diminish the ability of people to vote. The president signed the bill. The law was then reauthorized in the 1970s, in the 1980s, in 2006. In 2006, the Senate unanimously reauthorized it. All of these people...
98-0.
Yeah, all of these people are determining what is appropriate legislation. And then in 2013, the Supreme Court, 5 justices on the court, looked at this law and said, we don't think this law is appropriate. We think it goes too far. And there isn't like an objective standard for how to define a phrase like appropriate. But so much of constitutional interpretation is like this. So a different provision of the Constitution empowers Congress to provide for the general welfare. What does providing? Oh, I like that. What does providing for the general welfare look like? That's the kind of question that in a democracy we elect representatives to answer. And Congress in 2010 answered that question. We think it means providing more health care to people by requiring states, if they want to receive federal grants, to expand access to Medicaid.
these opinions overturning what all of the lower courts have done without even giving an explanation as to why, without full-blown oral argument and briefing and so on, and just kind of in the thick of night, in the shadow docket, savaging what the rule of law is all about. And so it always comes back to the people, Mark, and I'm sure, as one of our great litigators, even that the people are going to set the context for any legal conflict, for any legislative struggle. It's where the people are. But the good news is that you read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights the way that I do. The 17 amendments that we've adopted since the original Bill of Rights are a chronicle of the people's struggle for greater and deeper democracy and equality. The vast majority of those amendments are all about expanding democracy. There's a coherent story there. The 13th Amendment abolishes slavery and involuntary servitude, except, in an incarceration. The 14th Amendment gives us equal protection and due process. The 15th Amendment bans race discrimination in voting. The 17th Amendment shifts the mode of election of the U.S. senators from the legislatures to the people. The 19th Amendment doubles the franchise in America with women's suffrage. The 23rd Amendment gives people in D.C. at least the right to vote in presidential elections. The 24th Amendment bans poll taxes. The 26th Amendment lowers the voting age. The whole trajectory of our constitutional development is towards greater democracy. And our problems today are not democracy, they're the impediments to democracy. They're the obstacles to democracy. So I'm with John Dewey, who says the only solution to the ills of democracy is more democracy. What's killing us? The voter suppression laws are killing us. The gerrymandering of our congressional districts, which is based on the gerrymandering of our state legislative districts. That you have literal political minorities in states that have been able to gerrymander themselves into power decade after decade and then translate that, especially with new computer technology and artificial intelligence.
People that say partying, it's time to hear a funky rhyme from me, the Biz Marquis again. As I just display them, the way I like to say them. This other stepping style that I use to amuse. And hey, I'm the original, hellified kinging. One freak I sound for throwing down, and you know that I'm bringing the crowd to enjoyment by what I do. Like, ow, wow, 1, 2. I keep the people cheering because of what they're hearing. Moving and grooving to a devastating sound is glaring because they're in the mood for me. The B-I-Z, the M's, the M's, the A-R-K-I-E. The party ripping, never tripping, king of crowd pleasing. I can turn it out without a doubt in any season. I entertain crowds, 1,000,000 and thousands. Homeboys making noise as I do browse through a girl's mouth. Say the funky rhyme that makes the girls get naked. I can turn it out with different sounds on my record that I say give them. Is your absorb the rhythm, the magnificent record maker of prison.
The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz go off, go off. The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz go off, go off.
Ha 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 ha! Check out this bizarre. Ha 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 ha! Check out this bizarre. This technique is keep the people freaking like me, the Biz Marquis, because my style is so unique. Guaranteed to rock the mic with rhyme that I say. I'm just as good as Clint Eastwood, so won't you make my day? Marky the original, yes I am the boss, and I can rock the microphone for you and yours. Go, I want you till my voice is hoarse, then take a pause. And you know, of course, I can rock a party with so much force. I'm the greatest entertainer Marley came across. Put pictures and photo magic in it with gloss, and I don't eat spaghetti without the meat sauce. Whether Ragu, Prego, Hunts, or Aunt Millie, you wanna get this, then try to get Ellie with me, the inhuman, because I'm like booming. Reagan is the pres, but so was Harry Truman.
The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz Markets are going off. The Biz go off, go off.
Supersonic. Supersonic. Supersonic motivating rhymes are creating. And everybody knows that JJ Fad is devastating. We know you like us girls, so you better get sterile, cause we are the home chicks that are rocking your world. Supersonic. Supersonic. Supersonic is a word when people start to listen, especially bigger people people, they pay close attention. You might not believe it, you might not even buy it, but when it comes falling, you might even try it. Supersonic, supersonic. Now all you supersonic people try to bite our rhymes. You may think that you are deaf, but you're way behind. So you better listen good to what we have to say, cause when it comes to JJ Fad, you can't get no play. Supersonic, supersonic. Now he's the freshest DJ. From coast to coast, my man can cut and scratch. But I don't mean to boast, he may be a little light, but that's okay, cause when he cuts to the beat, it sounds this way. Hit it! Supersonic, supersonic. Yeah, it's finally my turn to rock the mic because my devastating beats I know you will like. You see my beat box is fresh, it'll blow your mind, and if you don't like my beats, I'll go big in your behind. Supersonic, supersonic.
You're not getting on.
Now you party people know what supersonic means. We didn't try to brag, but JJ Fad is just too clean. Now baby, don't you know that our rhymes are so bionic? Don't listen too hard, don't be supersonic. Supersonic,
You're not getting on.
supersonic.
None, but it looks done and they not getting none. It looks done and they not getting none. It looks done and they not getting none. For them turn up, me sit down, me a walk, him a run, him bucking big toes tumble down. When it looks done and they not getting on. True Shaka Zulu, him a Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu, you gave a Shaka Zulu. You ugly like a horse, like a patu. Snake, kangaroo. You a battle in a pen and me a battle too. Buck up on me that go fuck down you. Kick off on me, you go and kick down you. Box off on me, you go and box down you. True Shaka Zulu, you a Shaka Zulu. Shaka Zulu, you a Shaka Zulu. They look dumb and they not getting on. They look dumb and they not getting on. He done and they not getting on. But they look dumb and they not getting on. Why? Remember say me know you from you small and young. From you ugly like a man, they walk I am wrong. Me have money and you never have none. Me know you from your use money and bun. You have a truck on the road and it a run. Your truck good looking but you know handsome. You feel back a tuka, you a Shaka Zulu son. It looks done and they not getting none. It looks done and they not getting none. It looks done and they not getting none. It looks done and they not getting none too. And we go hold it.
Could I live a not even South London? Could I live a East or even West London? Hey, live a country, you could I live a Japan. It no matter you a Junglistan. Get it up. How you think come and you think one like you wicked? Come in and the doctor says the hardcore massive. Mad you must be mad, I must be stupid, Any boy think them better talk to it. Yes, we just shot it, tag it and kill it. This the hardcore and then we punch out your parrot. Just come back, look on the jungle, solid. Take it back, boy, and then you hold yours.
Yo, I'm going to kill the fucker out there. And people is going to be in demand for the show. People is sick and tired of hearing this bumbo class. Get down, shake your fucking booty. Yo,
I know the people, any boy, I never live out the street. Hardcore, and the papa boy, you see, so pretty boy, the devil, they must get it. Yo, why you push up your light, you only fucking one. Could I live in the land, even in London? Could
that?
Yo, check it. Yeah. Yo, check it. Yeah. Yo, check it. Yeah. Yo, check it. Yeah.
Rescue you, brother. Memories of a significant other. Library living in color. Better get used to the squalor. Otherwise, you're a goner.
Tells us something about his psychology.
Right.
Right. That would be his ego ideal, someone who's a serial killer who eats people. That sort of tracks. But in other words, it really doesn't make sense. Or another example would be when he was asked about the Harvard situation, he said, well, aren't you challenging academic freedom? And he said, oh, in Harlem, all the black people voted for me because Harlem sounds like Harvard. And he didn't just mishear it, because then he goes on to say, the people in Harlem agree with what I'm doing in Harvard. So, this is really a gross, right? It doesn't make any sense. And he does this meandering kind of speech,
Right. Well, and of course, what's interesting is we have digital breadcrumbs, and we have, 14 seasons of The Apprentice to study him and then look at him now. Give us the phrase again that you called it. Was it phenol something?
Phonemic paraphrases.
Phonemic
paraphrases. He uses sounds that aren't really words. There's also a semantic paraphasia where you use a real word but in the wrong context, like saying the oranges of the investigation when he meant the origins of the investigation.
Right, although I promise you I do that too, and I'm hoping I don't have dementia. What is it in the brain that is sort of disintegrating, if you like? Is this just a symptom of old age, or is it actually something in the brain no longer working as it used to?
Yeah, it's not just a symptom of old age. This is really a breakdown it's actually a breakdown in all of the mental functions, in thinking, in psychomotor performance, in impulse control. So we're seeing this in all areas of his life. Now, of course, with him, sometimes it's hard to tell because he has this severe personality disorder. He is a malignant narcissist.
So is the personality disorder, did that come before the dementia?
Absolutely. No, he's been a malignant narcissist his whole life. A personality disorder is a lifetime disorder. So, when he was 10 years old, he was throwing rocks at babies in the neighborhood. He's always been this malicious, malignant person. So that's core to who he is, and that's what makes him so dangerous and untreatable. Now, on top of that, this really is the worst case scenario.
Well, hold on. You're throwing so many things out there. He's untreatable. He was throwing rocks as babies. I'm assuming you meant that metaphorically.
No, literally, he was throwing rocks at babies.
Well, is that a story about him, that he was literally throwing rocks at babies?
Yes. When he was a child, there was babies, neighbors, was a neighbor baby. He was throwing rocks at them.
Okay, I didn't know that story, and that certainly does seem like a symptom of some sort of personality disorder. Please continue, and then let's come back to how one treats something like this.
Malignant narcissism is untreatable. We can't cure people who are this sick in this way. But also it makes him incredibly dangerous. Every one of the great dictators has more or less been a malignant narcissist. The term was invented by Erich Fromm, who himself escaped the Nazis, to explain the psychology of Hitler. And other dictators like Hitler. He understood Hitler to be one of a type, maybe the most extreme, but one of a type. So that's where we started out as a baseline. But now what we have is this chronic organic deterioration from his own baseline. So we have, in a sense, the worst of both worlds, because his judgment was always bad. He was always impulsive. He was always a liar. if you saw that footage where he met Putin at the airport, and they came down the red carpet, and some people sort of sped it up like a kind of Benny Hill sort of, takedown.
Right.
You see him weaving across the carpet like a drunk driver. If you actually take that same footage and slow it down, what you see is the reason he's weaving to the left is because his right leg is swinging this wide swing to the left, which is causing his whole gait to move in that direction. We have a lot of different pieces of tape where we see that wide-based gait. And the expert that I consulted with said this is what we call pathognomonic. You don't see this in anyone unless they have frontotemporal dementia. So it's a very specific symptom that really an expert would understand the significance of. And of course now we're seeing a more general deterioration. He seems to have clearly serious circulatory problems. We don't know the marks on the back of his hand. Probably getting some kind of injury. A lot of people are predicting that he's having a series of mini strokes. And that's not something that comes with age or fatigue. I can't even do it, right? I'm trying to make half of my face droop. I have to pull it down. It's not something you can just do or something just happens. It really is suggestive of some kind of potential mini stroke. So all these things could be related, right? The circulatory problems could be related to the deterioration in his brain. They could even be causal, or he could just have both dementia and some medical problems. We don't know. This is really an area where we're really not sure. But he's clearly deteriorating mentally and physically.
I have to say it's completely terrifying because first of all, these medical terms which I like, and I'm sort of stabbing at guessing what they mean, but I've already diagnosed myself with severe dementia, personality disorder, hypomania. It's very nerve-wracking talking to you. So assuming you're right, and we can certainly see, because of his television and his digital media trail, that he has definitely changed.
Yes.
How does one manage the change? I mean, you always hear about dictators or malignant narcissists, that they are very unpredictable and they're very frightening, even colleagues to be around because of the unpredictability. You see Trump's cabinet looking extremely anxious having to sit near him. And in fact, what Michael Wolff, who's frequently on our podcast, says is that within the White House, it's better not to be in the room. Usually, certainly in corporate America, people long to be in the room where it happens. Obviously, the famous song from Hamilton, in the room where it happens. But actually, people want to be out of the room, because if you're in the room, Donald Trump's gaze may suddenly settle on you, and it will trigger him to either go off on you or remind him of something. How should people handle someone who's going through this?
Well, this is what's really frightening because, right, so many people have had relatives who have been through this, and we get notification from so many viewers who are saying, I went through this with my mother, I went through this with my father, I recognize all these signs that you're talking about. But this was someone that, they were able to, and it's not easy to manage someone with dementia, actually.
Right, I mean, anybody watching this, anybody watching this who's got someone with dementia in their family will know it can be very unpredictable, and people can also get very bad-tempered.
Exactly, and some people in my family are dealing with this. But then imagine that person has sort of omnipotent power, right, and is paranoid about anyone trying to control them and will attack anyone who contradicts them. It's really kind of like a worst-case scenario, right? That the person holding the nuclear codes is incompetent, but nobody can rein him in. He won't listen to anybody, and no one dares to oppose him. So one of the things that I think we're going to start to see is as he deteriorates, the lackeys around him are going to be more and more kind of, if we thought the last cabinet meeting was crazy, he says crazy stuff, and it's not just the people in his government, it's even the press, right? He says crazy stuff, and nobody follows up on it. Nobody comments on it. It really is like the emperor's new clothes, but without the punchline, without the person saying he's naked, and then everyone going, "Oh my gosh, he's naked." I thought it was only me that saw it.
But isn't the complexity that people have actually called it out? I mean, you called it out with 45,000, I think, professional doctors, psychotherapists who were pointing this out during Trump won. And the press have relentlessly called it out, as Donald Trump himself would say. I mean, look at his reaction to Jimmy Kimmel this week. So isn't the problem that people have called it out, but people also don't seem to care, or they might even like it? I mean, in some ways, it's seen as a sign of strength.
Well, I don't think it's seen as a sign of strength to be demented. I think he, however, is very good.
Well, okay, just to clarify, I'm not saying it's seen as a sign of strength to have dementia, but...
By Jean and Albania, as an example. It was going on for years. It was never going to be settled.
I can show you one clip of
If
Stephen
you
Miller.
remember, the Prime Minister and the presidents, they were there for many years. They said, when they were in my office, we settled. And they started off at both sides of the Oval Office, so far you could be so far away. And as
we were together for an hour, they kept getting closer, and by the time we finished, we all hugged each other.
So that's it, great. He's a leader, not a lawyer. Happily, at the American Cornerstone Institute Founders Dinner this weekend, he was able to set the record straight about that conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia.
And now they're sitting in my office, and they're at the Oval Office. It's pretty wide. And they had one over here, one over there. And slowly, over the course of about an hour, they came close. And at the end of an hour, we were hugging each other and holding hands. It was an amazing thing, and we settled that war. That was not settleable, as the expression goes. Cambodia and Armenia, it was just starting, and it was a bad one. Think of that.
Cambodia and Armenia. But also, I'm going to play that one again, because that's not an expression, is it? They said it was not settleable, as the expression goes. Who here hasn't heard that expression before? I mean, it's up there with a Rolling Stone gathers no moss, isn't it? Or a stitch in time saves nine. Unsettleable, as the expression goes. It's a bit like saying, as the expression goes. Up next week. Perhaps that someone did. They said it could have been worse. You could have said Cambodia.
And now they're sitting in my office, and they're at the Oval Office. It's pretty wide. And they had one over here, one over there. And slowly, over the course of about an hour, they came close. And at the end of an hour, we were hugging each other and holding hands. It was an amazing thing, and we settled that war. That was not settleable, as the expression goes. Cambodia and Armenia, it was just starting, and it was a bad one. Think of that.
I think he says, as the expression goes, when he's worried he might have just made up a word. Doesn't he? So that's an extraordinary level of insecurity and narcissism. So he's just about bright enough to realise that he might have just made up a word. And rather than be embarrassed by it, he'll pretend it's a very well-known word. So that's why he says, not settleable, as the expression goes. I mean, how many times would a word have to be used in common parlance to qualify as a well-known expression? More than once, I'd have thought, regardless of what your politics are. But anyway, at least he took the opportunity of a memorial to the murdered conservative activist Charlie Kirk to step back from his previous attempts to make political capital out of it and to resist calls for more unity, or to try to use it as an opportunity to improve political discourse in a country where, of course, many acts of political violence have been undertaken by his supporters, and where, of course, the biggest act of political violence, mass act of political violence that we've seen in recent years, was inspired entirely by him on January the 6th. So fair play to him for being a lot more committed to calming things down.
have the distance of weeks, if not months, away from the event. This is 10 days. It's nothing. You know, she's a rawly grieving widow who managed to talk about Christian forgiveness. So maybe we should kick off just by listening to her words.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. That man, that young man, I forgive him. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
So there is this almost sort of Christ-like invocation of, you know, loving your enemies, loving those who stand up against you, which was then put into stark contrast by the president himself, you know, the leader of the free world, who got up and said in, I don't know if it was a slightly jokey manner, but it was a very angry manner. It was a quite vitriolic manner. I hate my opponents. And that seemed to be his message to the event as he stood there, wrapping it up at the end.
In a private moment on his dying day, we find everything we need to know about who Charlie Kirk truly was. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie.
I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
Is Erica Kirk the softening agent we've been waiting for? I don't know.
Extraordinary, though, because, you know, not only does he directly contradict the widow, you know, at her husband's memorial by making it about hate rather than salvation or love.
In which she has also said, we didn't see riots, we didn't see violence, we didn't see killing, we saw revival, we saw
completely.
And then he just...
And what does he say? He says he wants to send the federal forces to police cities. He wants to put the Department of Justice onto his political enemies. In other words, it becomes intensely political, intensely quickly. And in a way, he has commandeered it entirely into something that he wanted it to be, which was a rally activism against the left. But there is also one other speech that we're going to play you because, I mean, this is kind of extraordinary in its own right. It comes from Tucker Carlson, another man who actually fell foul of Donald Trump a couple of years ago, another big influencer on the right in Magaland, who is talking about his favourite biblical parable. I mean, take that with a pinch of salt.
So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamp-lit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking! And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up.
That'll fix the problem.
Wow. Well, put that into context for people who might not.
Mockler rhythm. Dog, you will get dog. Tell a little son boy fi park. Come in a deck. Dog, that boy chalk. Boy see me gonna get. Walk up, me not talk up. Them little boy get dark up. Me and me dogs them march up. I'm gonna take no shortcut. Me them boy them can't touch. Them can't rush. Them can't budge. Wallad, arms up. Dark heart, can't love. Walk up, me not talk up. Them little boy get dark up. Me and me dogs them march up. I'm gonna take no shortcut. Me them boy them can't touch. Them can't rush. Them can't budge. Wallad, arms up. Dark heart, can't love. Mask off, walk up. Kill them, nah fuck. Big skin, clock up. Everything that we walk up. Mask off, walk up. Kill them, nah fuck. Big skin, clock up. Everything that we walk up. 5-star general, send them to the funeral. Mama off the ball, but she be here for the funeral. 5-star general, send them to the funeral. Mama off the ball, ball.
Brooklyn squad, Wu-Tang killer beats on the swarm. Rain on your college ass just goes norm. For you to even touch my skill, you gotta go to one killer B, and he ain't for the kill now. Chop that down, pass it all around. Nerves get hard, quick cement to the ground. 40 MC and any 52 states, I get psycho. Killer, Norman Bates, my producer slam. My flow is like man. Jump on stage, up in a distance. Ooh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw. Yeah, baby, I like it raw. Say is raw, keeping it dirty down to the floor. See, my name is the OGB, and I'll beat your ass. For the ladies who know me, tell them who the fuck I be. For the niggas who know me, tell them who the fuck I be.
Our free speech was under that. I mean, I'm just really confused. Until you start wondering whether it is, as always, all about the race. As is often the way, the transgender people being used as camouflage in the first instance to go all in on the racism. Allowing public discourse to be vile again in the context of transgender people, you're never going to get that genie back in the bottle, and all of the people whose bigotries extend far beyond one issue have been filling their boots ever since. I want you to listen to something. First of all, I want you to listen to this. This is a political commentator from the Republican Party. I think he used to work for George Bush. He definitely worked for one of the George Bushes. I just can't completely remember which one. This guy got sacked.
He's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
That is a guy called Matthew Dowd speaking on MSNBC. He got fired for those words shortly afterwards. This is a guy called Jesse Waters speaking on Fox News in more or less the same window of time, and both in response to this horrible murder.
Trump gets hit in the ear. Charlie gets shot dead. They came after Kavanaugh with to his neighbor. They went after Musk's cars. They just shot two Jews. Think about it. Police got shot, barely survived. 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 We're angry and we're resolute, and we're going to avenge Charlie's death in the way Charlie would want it to be avenged.
You watched it. Donald Trump lost an election. You watched it. Supporters attacked the Capitol and attacked the public servants working there, and Capitol and attacked the public servants working there, and Capitol and attacked the public servants working there, and Capitol and attacked the public servants working there, and Capitol and attacked the public servants working there, and Capitol and attacked the public servants working there, Capitol and attacked the Capitol and attacked the Capitol and attacked Capitol and attacked Capitol and a Capitol and a Capitol.